Hey, this is Alternate Careers. We are going to have a conversation about our jobs in fashion, what we thought would happen, what actually happened, and what might be useful to you guys. And in that vein, before we start, I just want a quick show of hands. How many of you guys are still in school? Okay. How many of you guys have just graduated? How many of you already have a job in fashion? Not internship. How many of you have a job? Okay. Great, that is good. So it seems like most of you guys are trying to figure out what happens when you graduate, those first steps, you know, first and second jobs. So we'll try and keep the advice and the discussion about that rather than what happens when you're the CEO. Although we can definitely talk about that too. So here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna sit down, and first I want everyone to introduce themselves. I wanna know your job now, and I want to know your first job, not internship, but job in the fashion industry, if you had one.
Okay. I'm Danielle McGrory. I'm the Senior Digital Director at KCD. My first job in fashion, well, I started on the fashion track working in retail in high school, and then I kind of stayed on that path. But my first job in an office was working for a small accessories company, where I supported the owner of the company doing everything on the creative side, from like overseeing designs to marketing to PR to all of that.
Hi guys, who I am. I'm Valentine Uhovski. I'm a fashion evangelist at Tumblr. And my first job ever was actually working at IMG's on the Daily Front Row. And I think I was 22 at the time. I was a huge, actually, tennis fanatic, and IMG just bought Tennis Week magazine, and I thought that was like my dream job, but we had a very creative editor there and named Brendan Suniro, who you do fashion now too, like 3 days later. So I started doing fashion and tennis, and then fashion kind of overtook stuff just a couple of weeks later, and I think I was there for 4 years, which was awesome.
Hi, my name's Samantha Goldworm. We own a company called 1229. We create scents, fragrances for brands. And I guess my first job in fashion was scenting the Rodarte show about 4 years ago.
Fancy.
Kind of like head in, all feet go, which was really inspiring, a lot of fun, pretty difficult, and it turned out pretty well, I think.
I'm Dawn Goldworm. I'm the co-founder of 1229. I don't know if this is on. And the scent director. I think my first job in fashion, I started in retail as well when I was in high school. And I think my first job outside of that was probably at British Vogue, I guess when I was in London. I was there for a bit.
It's a pretty good first job.
Yeah, not bad, ladies. I'm Julianne Orsini, and I own a company called The Wardrobe, and I archive and manage the collections of designers and private people with huge closets. My very first job in fashion was also retail at Ralph Lauren on Long Island in high school. And the first paying job I had doing something I wanted to was working on a bunch of prototypes for Gruner & Yard in publishing.
Okay, cool. So let's start with internships. I think that there's an assumption, probably based on the Hills, that you get an internship, it automatically leads to a job, and that not only that, but it's, you know, you learn that you would give anything to be there even after interning. I'm not sure that's true. I think you guys are probably not sure that's true. So let's talk about what you should be looking for in an internship. When people come to you and they say, I want to work for you, what are the things that they should expect to learn from you guys? And what are the things that you actually did learn from your internships?
Should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I think I'll start by saying I stress the importance of internships. Internships are a great way to get your foot in the door. It is a lot more effective than trying to send your resume for an entry-level job. To go into a company and make a personal impression is really the first best step. To your point about internships turning into jobs, I can speak from our KCD experience. We have an intern program that then turns into sort of a freelance program, and we definitely hire from it. And I would say that probably 80% of our new entry-level jobs are hired from that program. But that's still maybe 5 jobs a year, where we probably have 60 interns a year come in. So I think it can certainly lead to opportunities, and the ones that get the jobs are the ones that really made the most out of the experience.
Anybody else?
Absolutely. I work on a much smaller scale, but everybody that turns into a freelancer for me or an employee started as an intern. And it's all about, expanding your network. The first people that I interned for are still people that I connect with in my career that still help me today, even though we do different things. So it's about, I think at this stage of your career, meeting as many people as you can and, kind of seeing what fits and what's right for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think we would say the same thing. Working in fashion is all about kind of who you know, who you meet, making those connections, keeping those connections, doing internships, getting experience, doing different things as well. So when you're young and you're just starting out, you want to be able to say you've worked with different people at different places and not just doing one thing. Of course, unless you're on kind of one track, which I don't think most of us do.
Yeah, I would also just add to that even if you do know you want to do one thing, you're going to be better at that one thing if you understand all of the other, outlets that connect to that one thing. Yeah, I think that I actually worked in PR for about 2 seconds, just helping people. Well, when I first moved and, I needed money, helping people write press releases and, and it gave me, as a fashion editor, a better idea of how to work with publicists because I knew what they wanted and it wasn't, sadly, just to take me out for drinks. Yeah, we can do that too. So, speaking a little bit about doing different things, but also about what you guys were talking about with connections. I know right now, I feel like a big industry buzzword is personal branding. How important or how good an idea is it to begin your personal branding before you've established yourself in the industry?
I very much think personal branding is about perfume, of course, because that's what we do. And I think the perfume that you wear is your signature and your personal branding. I'm like a perfume loyalist. I wear my perfume for 15 years and I never change. Well, that's not true. I wore it for 15 years. I changed for the next 15 and then I guess I'll change 15 years later. So I think you can probably start wearing your perfume now if you have a strong sense of who you are. In terms of personal branding and as your style, I mean, I guess it depends. I think fashion moves so quickly now, it's very trendy that I would be careful, to say the least, with what goes up online. It never comes down. Once it's up there, it's kind of up there. It's really difficult to get photos and films taken down, so I would be very careful because what translates from a social community to a professional community can be very different.
And in fashion, they kind of blur. So part of working in fashion is making those connections and is working, you work past 5 o'clock. You go to a lot of events, you go to a lot of engagements where you meet people, and so your personal life becomes your work life, and it all kind of jumbles into one another, and your friends are people that you work with, so it can get confusing in that sense. And the whole idea of personal branding, I came from the corporate world before we started this company, and they talk a lot about creating your personal brands, and I think it's really hard to do when you don't have, a big resume behind you.
A professional identity.
Yeah, a professional identity. So it takes time to build. You can wear your perfume that you choose and maybe style yourself, but I think it evolves as you get more experience and your branding. Just like for a company, just like if someone was to create a brand, it takes time, it needs the history in the background.
Okay, Valentine, can I get you to weigh in? Because I know that people start their Tumblrs with
Totally.
an eye on, establishing a visual presence of who they are.
And I think that's sort of a fantastic start as well. I mean, we live in a completely different age right now. I think when I was younger, when we would apply to internships, you literally had to send faxes. I don't know if you guys know what that is, or you had to physically go and stalk people and knock on people's doors. And right now it's a very different world right now. You can actually, have an ability to create a visual brand, whether it's through Tumblr or a beautiful Instagram page, or every single employee that works at Tumblr has a Tumblr page, and obviously when we interview them, they have to go through this crazy process. We definitely look at their pages. We want to see who they are because a lot of the engineers or creative and outreach people, they're artists and musicians, and they do a lot of really, really cool stuff. So I think it's very important to sort of establish yourself, and be very strategic about sort of what you put online and what you don't put online. I mean, I interviewed people on many jobs, and I mean, I had people tweet at me maybe 5 seconds after I leave the door, which doesn't make any sense, because a lot of times the positions are not not so public, so it doesn't make sense. So you have to sort of be, you have to be smart about, how you present yourself, what's out there. And I think Tumblr page sort of gives you this, beautiful and visual and creative possibility of really kind of way to establish yourself. We had tons of bloggers that actually went on to get amazing jobs with really, really great companies, So, and I have dozens of examples just over the last year, and they really look for people that, not just present themselves in a sort of in a biographical way, but also have really, really good visual, visual and creative aesthetic, and you could definitely do that.
I'm going to rewind for a second before the next question, because I think you said something that we would all agree with and that needs to be said over and over again. Do not tweet when you are leaving a job interview. Do not tweet when you are leaving an internship interview. Do not take a picture of the Condé Nast building and put it on your Tumblr when you are leaving an internship interview or a job interview. When you have the job, great, but that's some of the first things that we look at. And if you're tweeting from the office before you're even a part of the office community, what are you gonna do when you're on a photo shoot with a cover star that no one's supposed to know about for 6 months, So it's amazing to share where you are in your life. Don't check in on Foursquare. Don't do it. Call your mom. I think we all agree with that.
We have very strict policies with our interns.
Absolutely.
For sure, because we obviously have a lot of confidential information coming in and out of our office, and they are not allowed to.
Yeah.
We say anything that they would not have access to if they were not in this building. So, and they adhere to it, but there's been instances where
I was gonna say
it's happened, and we've taken pretty fast measures.
Raise your hand if you have dismissed somebody who's been a part of your company or your corporate community because of something that they posted online. Okay.
We didn't dismiss anyone. We just have very locked access to information.
Raise your hand if you have a spy system to prevent people from putting stuff online. Okay, so that's just a lesson to keep.
I think, and just going back to the personal brand for a second, I mean, I don't think that you can just be a person. You don't have to be a personal brand. Not every single role in this industry is visible. There are a lot of people behind the scenes. So I think that you should monitor everything that you put into the universe. It should be positive. It should, you should make great relationships. You should present yourself in the best positive light. But sometimes when you start concepting yourself as a personal brand, it comes off as a little bit pretentious in early career, and it can be a turn-off to employers.
It also comes off as a bit distracting sometimes, would you say? Yeah, which brings me to my next question in the fancy notebook. Okay, in an industry that really is all about aesthetics, how do you get recognized for your talent and not for your handbag?
Hard work. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
There's no secret. It's the same as any other industry. You have to be dedicated and hardworking and a team player.
Okay.
I think that goes back to sort of the principles of the company that you work for as well. I've worked for companies that were extremely superficial, and I've worked for companies in which that doesn't matter at all. So, and I find that I was a better match for the companies that weren't superficial. So, you're able to excel in that environment, but you just want to align and work for a place that shares your same principles. And if you are really about your image, then I'm sure you can find a company that will appreciate that.
Okay, that's very diplomatic of you.
That's true.
No, it's great. I think probably among the four of you, there's probably 10 to 15 jobs that you've all already had. So I want to ask a little bit about if you're just starting out, what should you look for? What if it's not your dream job? What if you thought you were going to be a fashion editor and someone offers you a job at KCD? What if you've always wanted to work at Tumblr and somebody at Instagram calls you? What if it's in the industry, but it's not what you wanted? What advice would you give to people who, took an interview because they thought it would be a good experience, and now all of a sudden they have a job, on their plate that isn't their dream?
That happens to most people.
It does.
No one gets their dream job at their first job, and you're probably not even qualified for your dream job right away, right? So I would say if it's in your industry, I would say take it. the experience is, getting as much experience as you can is incredible. And you know, if you get a job at Instagram and you want to work at Tumblr, once you finish, you know, working for a few years at Instagram, Tumblr will be happy that you've had that experience. You know, you have the experience in social media, you have the background that they're looking for. So as long as you feel that when you interview or you're getting this job that you're going to learn from it, that, I mean, having a good leader is important to me, so someone that you feel like you can learn from and that you're going to connect well with, I would definitely say take it. And if it's paying in New York and it's fashion, definitely take it.
My big advice is sort of like to really kind of know the companies that you want to work for. For example, if your first job is not with that dream company or those top 5, but you should really still go into any company, know everything about them, know how the culture works, read all the press materials on them, read all the social media hits, look at all their strategies really globally and nationally, because I think it's very, very important. When you have like those 5 companies or 3 companies that are always on your mind and you're paying attention, then sometimes I have a lot of friends that always had a dream company in mind and they become disappointed once they go into it. But if you know sort of what you love and what you look for, and you really are sort of like kind of mentally prepared for it and you know what to expect. And for example, if you want to write for a magazine and you know the tone of the magazine, I mean that couldn't be more important, or the tone of in certain PR company. So I think it's it's very, very important to be prepared and really do your homework.
Okay.
I would say be careful of going too far down the wrong path. But that considered, all experience can be great. I worked as a paralegal for a little while after college because I thought I was going to go to law school and be a fashion lawyer. I was like, oh, I'll still apply it to my interest. There's this woman, Betsy Pierce, who does the contracts for Narciso Rodriguez and everybody, and I was like, I'm going to be just like that. And I worked at a firm for about 9 months and hated every minute of it, but a lot of that experience has been really valuable. Even when I was interviewing at different magazines, I felt like it was sort of a blight on my resume, and they would say, you don't know how many people come through here that have that experience, and actually it teaches you to be really organized, and we know you're used to working hard and professionally, so
right.
It can all connect.
And that leads me to the next question, which is, what kind of discoveries have you guys made in a wrong job? Or in a wrong time?
I don't know that I've had discoveries per se, but to your point, I think in working in different facets of the industry, you learn how other sectors operate, which allows you to do your job better. Okay, cool. So even though now I may work as a publicist, I have previous experience in sales, and it's interesting to see how press responds versus how consumers may respond, and just having that sort of information.
Yeah, that's good. Dead. Bad question, Faran, bad question. Oh shoot, does that mean it's time for questions?
That was fast.
5 minutes until questions? Yes. Oh, 5 minutes until questions. Okay, shoot, see, they come in with these signs and you're like, what? I really do feel like I'm on The Price is Right a little bit. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left before people ask better questions than I'm asking. So let's talk a little bit about what you look for when you hire someone, because you all work for companies that are really amazing, and I bet a lot of people here want to be hired by you. So let's talk about that. First of all, sending an email. Do you prefer it to be really formal, or do you prefer someone to send you an email that just says, hi, I learned about you from this person or from this event, here's my resume? How do you prefer to be contacted?
The less we have to read, the better.
The less you have to read, the better. Okay. Yeah, you too?
I never read a cover letter.
Okay.
Yeah, cover letters are very $19.99.
Yeah.
We don't really do that, So, I mean, just just 3 lines if somebody has a Tumblr that they love. We actually, I try to keep an open door policy for the bloggers in New York. If anyone there drops me a note, we even try to invite them for breakfast or lunches whenever we have time to do so. But I never looked for super elaborate, over crazy resumes. I think it's really more about the passion of a person and what they are. And in my previous job, I had to hire a lot of writers, more than a dozen. And you always, the person that seems to have that perfectly, aligned, editorial, resume is never the one that's going to be good at the job. It's someone that's going to just have that sparkle, have that passion, and just have, really, really sort of, desire to be part of the industry and poke a microphone at, Michael Kors, because that was always their dream, and sometimes that person is really, really gonna, do something meaningful. So, and at Tumblr, I just kind of look for passionate people that just are friendly and really have awesome tumblers as well, yeah.
I have actually the opposite point of view. I think because I come from more the European side of it, I think that America's too casual. If someone just said hi to me and I've never met you before, I would immediately not read your email. So I think like, good morning, good afternoon, this is my name, this is how I know you, this is what I want to do. Like, you present yourself well, because I think an email is like presenting yourself aesthetically, physically. And I think it's your first form of communication with someone before meeting them. So I think that an email should be quite formal. But I also write formal text messages. So, I mean, I kind of go beyond that.
But I think it translates, though, for us and for our business. We're working with our clients, which might be a designer, it might be a big company, but we're also working with our perfumers, we're working with our suppliers. So we're constantly on email communication, and we have to know that you can communicate with us when you're trying to get a position, you can communicate with anyone we need you to communicate with if we give you that job. So that it's important. She's a little more formal than I am in that sense, but I think it's important to show that you have that sense of communication and you can, approach someone effectively.
I'm old-fashioned. I really appreciate a thank you note, that you appreciate, being able to sit down with me and maybe working for me. I definitely look for passionate people, but that said, no sloppiness. I agree. I don't like things that are overly formal from people I've never, overly casual from people I've never met before. And if there are any typos or misspellings, I immediately delete it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Because I feel that if you don't have the time to be professional in your email to me or your own resume, how can I trust you not to be sloppy with these really expensive garments that my clients own?
So I guess what we're hearing is that you should really try and find out something about the culture of the company, because some people prefer something quite formal and some people are like, this is the best Tumblr in the world, let's have breakfast. Also, I just noticed as she was talking about preferring formal things that we're totally in like a rainbow from like most casual to least casual clothing, which is sort of awesome. Anyway, okay, last super quick question before we go to your questions. Fill in the blank game. The first thing I do on a Monday morning is not like eating breakfast, like once you're in the office. Yeah.
It's depressing, but I wake up and look at the emails on my phone.
Look at the emails on your phone.
I look at 1,407 tumblers on my feed. I spend about three hours every single Monday doing that. Yeah.
I post to our blog.
Okay.
I smell all the modifications that came in on Friday.
I make to-do lists on Post-its.
You do?
I do.
How many?
How many Post-its?
Yeah.
Usually just 1 or 2 a day, but I like to cross it all off as I go and stay organized and focused.
Okay.
So.
I read about 50 blogs. Yeah, not kidding. Berkeley girl, go for it.
You were talking about when you first go for a job, what are some tips for someone that's their first interview ever? You really don't know what to do. What's overkill, what's too casual, just what should you do for your first interview? Or some tips?
I guess I'll start by saying that it really depends on the company, which is why doing research is key. You're never gonna have the same interview at any job that you go to, because the culture of the office is gonna be different. That said, I think there are probably some basics that you should always do. I'll start and say, it shocks me when people come to see me and I've called them in for an interview and they don't have a copy of their resume. It's amazing. And I don't care if it's on a piece of paper or if it's on your iPad, but not coming in with that basic piece of information is insanely underprepared.
I think that you have to be yourself in an interview, because if you can't sit down and have a conversation with the interviewee and not be nervous, then we would be apprehensive about putting you in front of clients. So, and also you need to be yourself, because if you're putting forward any type of pretense and you're not the right fit for the company, then that will surface down the line. So, yeah, you have to be yourself.
I would say that you need to show that you've done some research on the company. So you need to ask some questions and just show that you're taking an interest in who you're interviewing with and the company you're interviewing with. I can't tell you how many people have asked, us if we're twins, which
clearly we are.
But I mean, that's obvious. But if you've done any research on the company, you would know that at least we're sisters, and it's one of those questions that you're kind of like, do you know where you are? Are you in the right place?
But I would also say, empower yourself a little bit. You're coming with a lot of education, you have a lot of passion. This is also an interview for you, and you're interviewing the company as well. And so don't be, kind of on top of them, but you also want to gather information with them to see if it's the right fit for you, whether it's an internship or your first job. You want to see if also you're going to add value to that company and for yourself and your own professional advancement.
I think that because a lot of you guys are coming from school, your first instinct is to tell us what you like and what we'll do for you, what you can learn from us, and what, but that's not what a job interview is. A job interview is you saying, this is how I'm going to make your life easier, this is how I'm going to make your job easier, this is how I'm going to contribute to your company. And I think all too often when people talk about what they're going to bring to the company, it's what they're going to learn from us, which is lovely and wonderful, but it's not the purpose of a job. The second thing is actually something that Kelly Catrone once said, and it's always stuck with me, which is that you should never wear something conspicuously more expensive than what your boss has. And it's a good piece of advice, absolutely you want to look like you care about fashion, but maybe leave the head-to-toe Chanel ensemble at home.
Well, and you won't be able to negotiate your salary very well if you come
true.
in with a really expensive bag.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Hi, my name is Angela. I have a question about career changing because I graduated, started a career on more like the business side of fashion, and I want to do fashion writing. So for someone who has kind of some experience but not much in experience of the field that I would like to go in, what advice do you have for that?
Pursue your passion, and just because you're on one track doesn't mean you have to stay on it. I know, speaking from personal experience, I studied journalism in college. I thought I would be a writer. I worked in retail after college. Then I went and was working for an accessories design firm. Then I went back and did marketing in a retail company. Now I do PR. I had not ever thought of that path for myself, but it all worked out. And I think the industry is very receptive to change. And you just kind of have to, if you want to be a writer, start, I hate the word blog, but start a blog or whatever, start writing and bring that to your interview.
I would also say that it's weird, I kind of have opposite advice, which is please don't start a blog, says the founder of Fashionista. I think that if you're already in the industry, you already have contacts. And so you should use what you have and meet with everyone that you possibly can who, is on the writing side. And I think that you should start, if you can, trying to pitch, stories to smaller publications or smaller fashion, blogs. Because if you came to an interview and said, I want to be a fashion writer, and you had an entire blog that you'd written yourself, or you had 3 really good clips from Refinery 29 and one clip in The Observer and 1 clip, in Time Out, that to me would be much stronger because it shows that you can work as part of a team, and it shows that you're not just writing in your own head. So I would say—
Writing is a muscle, Faran. It's a practice.
You're right, it is. So sure, but that doesn't mean, to the Goldworm's point, that you want to put everything you're writing with no editing on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the opportunities right now are, much more democratic than they were about a decade ago. There's so many digital components to pretty much every single publication. You want to do yourself a favor. You want to try it out. You want to, contribute a free clip to, Faran said, to 2 or 3 publications and see that's what you like. Maybe you want to be super rich and stay in fashion business anyway, and want to do writing in the first place. But it's, you want to do yourself a favor and try out both, and see if that's the right fit for you or not.
And I would say if you're switching careers or you're switching ideas, don't be afraid to take a couple steps backwards, because sometimes that will happen. So, you're progressing on one path and then you decide, oh, actually I'm more interested in doing something else, but they want to give me, the same salary, or they want to give me a lower title or something. It's kind of what you have to do. You can't expect to make a lateral move, but if it's something you really want to do, then it's worth pursuing.
Cool. Anybody?
I have a question.
You do?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'll hold a mic too. Well, because I've been sitting here very curious. This is alternative careers, and I want to know, how do you end up scenting a fashion show? How do you end up archiving clothes for a living? Like, all of you guys have super unique careers, and you've all started in ways that, like, people can relate to, but you've ended up in these places that are really, like, really unique. So can you tell me how you scent a fashion show? And maybe just down the line. I would love to hear it.
Well, I guess the first store we scented was a friend of mine who I went to college with, who happens to be the son of the Bottega Veneta family. But when I moved to Paris, they had sold Bottega to Gucci years before, and he was starting his own accessories brand, and he was opening his shop in Palais Royal. So we scented the shop, and through him, and at the same time I had done a perfume for Kylie Minogue, because I did all the celebrity perfumes at Coty for 8 years or something like that. I'd met a friend of my friend, and he was with Kylie at a restaurant, and they just happened to be there, and I met them together, and then, I don't know, about a month later I was having lunch with him, and I was geeking out about my thesis. I had also gone to grad school twice, and perfumery school. I'm a big fan of school. And I was kind of geeking out about my thesis, which was olfactive branding. And he is the owner of Bureau Batak, which is one of the very large fashion production companies. He also happens to be the creative director of Rodarte. And so I was kind of going on and on, all in my head. And he was like, well, do you want to scent the Rodarte show for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. What does that mean? Like, I had no idea what that meant. I was like, of course I can scent a fashion show. And that's actually when I turned around to her and I was like, we're going to scent a fashion show. She was like, how are we going to do that? I was like, I have no idea. But then, and of course we figured out how to do it. It took a lot of, at the time, a lot of technology that didn't really exist. So it was a lot of playing around with how to do it. But then we started sending lots of fashion shows after that.
I think, the moral, I guess, of the story of how we started, scenting fashion shows is that it's all through connections of people we knew, from way back when, or people we met in a new place, and we're so passionate about what we do, and we talk about our company and our idea all the time, that when you talk about it, people get really excited, and that's how we've scented all these other shows, and that's how we continually, we'll just be sitting and we'll meet a designer and we'll talk about what we do, and they'll be like, you should scent my next show. So it's less about kind of pitching them, and it's about using our network and talking to people about what we love doing, and somehow we created an industry out of it.
I totally fell into what I do, and I took some steps backwards to get where I am, actually. I started out as a fashion writer, and I was hired to be on the launch team of a magazine that was described to me as going to be a weekly fashion magazine, very servicey with a strong anchor in fashion. And that magazine turned out to be Life and Style, which was very celebrity focused, and that was back in the early 2000s when celebrity was really sort of hitting fever pitch as something that everyone was obsessed with. And
Paris Hilton.
Yes, and it was really not what I was very passionate about. So I went back to grad school and got my master's in the history of fashion and textiles. And I figured, well, if nothing else, I'll really be a wonderful fashion writer because I'll know the whole history of my subject. And while I was in school, I sort of fell into museum and gallery work. I worked in some designers' archives. And right out of school, I interviewed at Style.com, and I interviewed with Tom Ford within 2 weeks of each other. And Tom Ford offered me the job first. So here I am as an archivist. And I worked in-house for Mr. Ford for a few years. And then I started my own company, and he remains a client of mine, but now I also work with other designers and private people, and that's where I'm at. But it was not something I would have predicted.
Yeah, I think it's just about being open about what you do and who you meet with. I happened to work with Tumblr a lot before I started working there. I covered a lot of their own initiatives, but again sort of when they needed somebody last minute to kind of come in and freelance to do fashion week program for them, and like with 3 days notice, I felt like I could do it, and it was fun, it was amazing, and people were as great as I thought they would be. But I think sort of like, you know, moral there is just really be in touch with everyone you kind of come in contact with, and because it seems like, you know, New York is huge and intimidating, and there are, you know, millions and millions of people there. In the industry, there are probably about 50, 60, 70,000 people. But then, weirdly, everything always connects, you know, and then you see people at the same events, and it's like, sometimes it is like the episode of the hills of the city, whichever one, you know, because, yeah, you get to work with a lot of people that you interact with through years and years, and sometimes you don't see someone for, you know, 4 years, and then you're sitting in a meeting or a boardroom with them, and you have to, you know, work on a huge project with them. So always really be in touch with everyone. You know, I think LinkedIn probably helps a lot too, you know, these days, you know, with a lot of fashion folks, and, you know, so there are other resources. But yes, stay on top of your contacts and be creative.
Dee?
Yeah, I probably have the most traditional role out of anyone on the panel, but when I started it 3 years ago, it didn't exist. KCD is a traditional PR and production company, and they hadn't done anything in digital, but knew that they wanted to. And I was working in traditional marketing and was looking for something to do more online, and had some experience with the current company. And I was introduced to KCD through my former boss, who was a former freelancer at KCD. And we met, and they didn't really know what they wanted the role to be, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but we felt like we meshed. And then I felt like we were dating. I interviewed for like 6 months, and
it is a lot like dating.
You know, they thought maybe we'll go in a production route, maybe we'll go in more of a PR, digital, social media route, and they ended up choosing me, and now I have 3 other employees that work with me. We went from 0 to 10 clients, and we're busy.
Woo! All right, so this is the part where you all get to hate me, because they told me that we had to wrap it up, even though I know you have a lot of questions. The good news is that we are all here, and also we're all very easy to reach online. So if you still have a question, you should come find us or come contact us. And you're all really awesome, and yay, go you. Thank you guys.